Hey, soldiers, I tell you what, when they said you will own nothing, they weren't lying. They also said you'd be happy owning nothing. That's a lie because in order to realize the pursuit of happiness, you have to have property. All right. So, JP Morgan, they are intent on being happy because it looks like they are going to spend $1 billion on hundreds of rental homes across the U.S. They're on their way to becoming a mega landlord. Now, that $1 billion, I'm going to show you how that's actually going to result in much, much more than $1 billion worth of real estate. Now, this is a trick that you can employ too. It's really not a trick. It's just a function of the asset of real estate. But look, you got to own, people. Okay, and the one thing you definitely want to own is your home. I know there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, you shouldn't own a home. Bullshit. Okay, first of all, you have to have some place to live. Now, is home ownership for 99% of the population? No, because if you move around a lot, okay, you might be in a different situation. But I don't care who you are. You're going to need to live in a structure as a human being for some portion of your life. You're going to want to have that structure work for you financially instead of working for someone else, like JP Morgan, for example. JP Morgan and Haven Realty Capital entered into a joint venture agreement back on November 15th. The companies plan to acquire up to $1 billion in build-to-rent properties starting in Atlanta. Now, what did I mean when I said they're going to be able to actually use that billion to acquire more than $1 billion? All right, we're going to get into the details here in just a minute. Housing experts warn that it can take a long time to bring build-to-rent properties to market. Look, let's just be honest. JP Morgan is no stranger to making money. They've been out there for over a century, and I'm sure they already know that this is not an instant process. What they do know is that more and more Americans are finding it difficult to own a home because of rising interest rates and lower wages. Got to live somewhere, right? Why not pay JP Morgan? A new joint venture between one of America's largest banks and a growing build-to-rent operator is the latest sign that big investors are undeterred by the volatile real estate market. Of course, they're not deterred because they've got long time horizons. They know people, need places to live. And they're calling this build to rent. The people are building rental properties, okay? I mean, they always got to put some new nomenclature on something. Haven Realty Capital and JP Morgan Chase's asset management arm said they will invest up to $1 billion to develop build-to-rent single-family homes across the country, according to a November 15th announcement. The duo plans to seed their investment with up to $415 million in equity. Okay, all right. So they are spending $415 million. The first installment will include a purchase of 250 homes in 3 communities around the Atlanta metropolitan area, and the deal could close within the next 90 days. All right, so they're putting up $415 million. They're saying they're going to acquire $1 billion. Well, basically, if you're saying I'm going to go out there and spend $20,000 on real estate, I'm going to come up with hardcore cash, $20,000, and I'm going to buy real estate with that. Well, if you're a residential purchaser or some mom and pop real estate investor, that might equal up to $100,000 in real estate because real estate is a leveraged asset. You can actually go out there and control a piece of real estate that is much more valuable than the monetary stake you have in it. That is the beauty of real estate. And that's not just reserved for the JP Morgans of the world. That's something you can do as well. And that is why real estate is such an attractive investment. And this is why you should own a home. Okay. Of course, they're going to say, this is coming from the insider, Business Insider. You don't think that they're getting some ad dollars somewhere along the line from JP Morgan? In fact, look at this. We're looking at an ad on their page for JP Morgan. So it just disappeared, but maybe it'll come back. In any event, so JP Morgan's paying them. So sure, they're going to promote rental where you pay in perpetuity and are subjected to the full brunt of inflation in the rental space. So if you've ever rented, you know that 9 times out of 10, that rent's going up each and every year. Whereas if you purchase, unless you get a one of those interest-only loans, you're going to have a stabilized payment. Now, the price of the home is going to be a fixed number, all right? Interest rates will fluctuate, and in some cases may give you an opportunity to lower your payment if you refinance to a lower rate once rates are lowered. All right, so the partnership comes at a time when demand for new housing continues to slide. Again, of course it does, because interest rates are rising. If we look at this chart from the Fed, we see that housing demand actually decreases when interest rates rise. That's a no-brainer. Meanwhile, the National Association of Home Builders reports that builder confidence is at its lowest since 2012 because of rising interest rates and construction material costs. So yeah, you also have that inflation aspect in the construction materials. The for-sale housing market has been significantly hampered by recession fears, inflation, and rising interest rates, placing a burden on home builders and their ability to add to the housing stock. Haven's founder, Sudha Reddy, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, said in a statement, adding that the partnership will allow the company to work with home builders who, quote, are becoming increasingly comfortable selling entire communities to operators, unquote, like Haven. Build to rent is a useful response to the market needs. The build to rent trend initially emerged during the Great Recession as a way for home builders to continue adding supply at a time when consumers were not buying homes. So what we're looking at is these vast tracts of corporate-owned homes. Now, back when I was but a lad and I was having a lot of financial trouble in my life, 3 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet, but it was all good. I was doing the right things in life. I knew it would pan out at some point, and it did. But back then, I rented an apartment, and I got an eviction notice each and every month for the entire year that I was there. I was always, just making my rent just before I got evicted. I remember I brought a young lady to my apartment one night, and there was a pink eviction notice on my front door. And I said, you know what? These people, they keep on making the same mistake. They keep putting this eviction notice on my door, but it's really for my neighbor. And I took it off of my door and I taped it to my neighbor's door. And I went in and had a lovely evening with my date. So I have experienced this, but what also happened is that the landlord of that apartment was extremely generous to me. And while she went through the necessary steps as a property owner to make sure she got paid, because I was living in her property after all, and I had every intention of paying her, it's just that, I didn't make a lot of money and I had to juggle things. But I always paid, eventually. And I paid late fees, so she probably was even more happy with me. The point of the matter is, I was renting from someone who had a personal understanding of my situation. So she gave me a little leeway, all right? That ain't happening if JP Morgan owns your apartment. You will pay, or guess what? You will be out. And look, this is going to be totally different. Like in Baltimore City, they're very renter friendly, overly renter friendly. I mean, if you want to rent a property, don't do it in Baltimore City. It's the worst place you can imagine to rent. There are other places like that, San Francisco. But when JP Morgan comes in, they're going to spread some money around, and you better believe those policies will change. And they will become these municipalities will become very friendly to the landlord then, because there'll be some contributions of a campaign nature involved. All right, they're saying this whole trend of building these rentals gained steam interestingly enough, during the COVID-19 pandemic. Wow, what a coincidence. As demand for single-family homes and suburban living skyrocketed. Everybody wanted to get the hell out of the city, right? Haven Realty has emerged as a national leader in the space with a portfolio of 35 build-to-rent communities, not buildings, communities, valued at more than $1.2 billion. Similarly, JP Morgan is one of a handful of companies that are pioneering digital rent payment options for renters and landlords. Isn't that nice? That might coincide with that central bank digital currency where you won't even need to pay. It'll show up, they'll know it's there, they'll know you owe it, boom, and they remove it just like that. Well, you got to have a place to live, right? You don't want to get evicted, right? Institutional investors like Fundrise, as well as pension funds and public companies, have been steadily acquiring single-family homes to rent for a profit. This has only increased competition for homes at a time when housing affordability is a primary concern for many. Listen, if you can't beat them, join them, right? I will be a homeowner. Okay, I'm going to own something. I'm not going to voluntarily put myself in a situation where I'm subject to the whims of the man. All right. However, some like Tomasz Piskorski, I apologize, a professor of real estate at Columbia Business School, believe that the build-to-rent model is more efficient than the traditional model of selling each newly built home to a separate private individual buyer. Right, Piskorski, because, that sounds too much like individual liberty, and we just can't have that. He told Insider in early November that the build-to-rent trend is a useful response to the market needs. Professional rental companies, in some ways, bring more efficiency, and they might help solve affordability problems because of very high mortgage rates right now. Oh, high mortgage rates? Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet, okay? Because once you're in that rental, going on the third and the fourth year, oh, yeah, the interest rates will look like cotton candy compared to the increases in rent. A lot of people simply can't afford to buy a home, Piskorski said. I would encourage you to look over the long term. Look at rent increases in your area and then extrapolate that out to 5 and 10 years and tell me what could you afford to do more than likely. Would it be better for you to rent? Would that have saved you more money? Or would it be better for you to own? Now, some people are going to say, well, you have to also account for the maintenance on the home. And that's true. You do. Taxes on the home. Absolutely. But what you don't get to count is appreciation of the value of the property. Now, if we go back just a few ticks here, it said Haven Realty has emerged as a national leader in the space with a portfolio of 35 build-to-rent communities valued at more than $1.2 billion. All right. So they are taking advantage of the appreciation of the property, the tax benefits, and also the income from the rents. Sounds like a damn good deal to me. And it's one that you can enjoy too, but you can't do it if you rent. Now, as far as Piskorski is concerned, not everybody agrees with him. Housing experts like John Burns of the eponymous real estate consulting firm in Phoenix, Arizona, have cautioned developers against going, quote, all in, unquote, on build to rent because it can take a long time to bring those communities to market. We're still very bullish overall, but not everything's going to work out, Burns told the Insider. Now, if only we could talk to Burns, Piskorski, Jamie Dimon, he's the CEO of JP Morgan, and Haven's founder, Sudha Reddy. I bet you $1 to a donut, all of them own their homes. Look, it's getting real in the field. You got to really buckle down and look at multiplying your streams of income. Because with regard to housing, do you know that over half of American adults are living with their parents? Okay. And in many cases, you have more parents moving in with the kids because things are getting outrageously expensive. Check out this video where we go deep into detail on just that very subject. Guys, I will talk to you soon.